Alright. I want to, like, get at least halfway. My throat's gonna be dead, but it's fine. I feel a little anxious as I wait for Gray to show up. Hey, I got your message. I turn at the sound of Gray's voice, finding him entering my workroom, phone in hand. Everything okay? He asks. Oh yeah, everything's good, I answer, a little flustered by his presence. When I had messaged him asking if he could meet me when he was free, I didn't expect him to show up so soon. Don't you have a game of Dragon Den going on downstairs? I ask, and he shrugs, tucking his phone into his back pocket. They won't miss me. Someone else took over the Den Master role, he says with a grin. So, what do you need? I was wondering if you'd be willing to lend your body to me, I answer as I gather some of the supplies together that I usually use for fittings. My body is all yours, Valkii. In the workroom, huh? He raises his eyebrows at me suggestively. Kinky. Where else would we do it? I ask, knowing exactly what kind of game we're playing, though my motives are entirely innocent. Anywhere you want, Gray smirks as he steps closer. Your bedroom, kitchen, shower. I feign a thoughtful look, wrinkling my nose for good measure. Well, the workroom does seem best. I have my tape measure, my fabric scissors, and my pins all here. Tape measure and pins? Not what I'd usually use, but I can work with them. He grabs my tape measure from the work table and pulls it tight as though testing its strength. Well, I'll be the one working with them, since I'm taking your measurements and all, I say innocently, giving him a small smile as I take the items from his hands. Measurements? He repeats. I need help with some costumes I'm working on. What did you think I meant? You know exactly what I thought you meant, he says with a growl before he sighs. So, what do you really need me to do? Stand over here, please, I say, directing him closer to my work table where I'll have easy access to my supplies. You'll need to take off your shirt. Don't say a word, I add when he opens his mouth, no doubt to make another flirtatious joke. He clamps his lips together and does as asked, while I busy myself getting the fabric ready. When I turn back again, finding him standing there bare-chested in front of me, it takes me more off guard than I expected. Trying to act professional as I work, I have him slip the fabric I'm currently using over his head. It's not like I haven't seen him shirtless before, though the only other time I have, he was unfortunately suffering from a nasty case of hives. Hello, what are those? Gray asks as I move in with my tray of pins, sounding slightly panicked. You better not be bringing those needles anywhere near me. Oh, relax, I shush him softly. You said you'd help me, didn't you? Gray huffs a sigh, his shoulders slumping unhelpfully. This is definitely not what I had in mind when you said you wanted to use my body, he says drearily. Tell me again why you can't use one of your mannequins for this? I prompt him to straighten up and shake my head at him. The client's dimensions are bigger than the mannequins I have. You're about the same size, so it works out perfectly. Well, I hate needles, he pouts, and I try my best to hide my smile. You literally have a metal bar going through your eyebrow, and they're pins, not needles. They won't stab you if you stand still, I say. Gray glances down at the deconstructed tunic I'm currently pinning in place around his top half, giving it a reproachful look. I finish the rest of the work in silence, and thankfully, Gray is as still as a statue, probably to avoid being pricked by any of the pins. Though I don't miss the way his forehead creases more and more as time goes by. What's up with you, Grumpy? I say with a small laugh, and his face finally softens. I'm not grumpy, I'm just thinking about things, that's all. Oh, I finish putting the last pin in place and step back from him. Do you want to talk about it? Not really, he says with a shake of his head. I don't mean to pout at being brushed off so easily, but it happens anyway, and when he notices, he lets out a breath of a laugh. I mean, no thank you. He twirls a strand of my hair around his finger before letting it go and gently flicking the tip of my nose. But thanks for the offer. That's more like it, I say with a giggle while I swat his hand away. I help him slip the tunic over his head, trying my hardest to keep my eyes on the garment and not the naked torso in front of me. Then I set the costume down on my work table, ready to be sewn together in the morning. Thank you again for helping me out. You can put your shirt back on, I say. I don't need to say it twice. Greg grabs his shirt and tosses it over his head. And sorry to keep you from your game. His blonde-haired head of hair pops out from the collar of his shirt as he pulls it down, followed by a small smile. Jed's got it covered, no big deal. Though I'd better head down if I want to catch the end of it. I busy myself as he leaves, organizing the rest of my work for the morning before flipping off the workroom lights and heading up to my apartment. The air is stuffy when I enter, and the evening is nice, so I open the doors to the balcony and let the evening breeze roll through the living room and freshen the place up. Flipping on the TV, I let it play in the background while I head to the kitchen and put something together for dinner. After eating and washing up, I sit back down in front of the TV and tuck my feet up on the sofa, intending to unwind a little before bed. until the strange sound captures my attention. Through the open balcony doors, I hear noises down in the hallway below, a kind of shuffling and then the jingling of the back door handle. Not again. Pushing myself up from the sofa slowly, I creep out to the balcony and peer over the railing, straining to see through the dim light. A figure in the alley below catches my attention. "Who's there?" I call out, only to be met with total silence. I wait a minute longer for a response, searching for the figure through the dark and wondering if it was only my imagination. Deciding that I should double-check, I leave my apartment and head down the stairs, checking my phone as I go and wondering if Gray has locked himself out. Approaching the back door slowly, I hear the jiggle a few more times before going silent. I leave the light off and keep my footsteps light. There's something strange about the situation, something that makes my hairs stand on end, and I get the distinct feeling that it's not Gray behind that door at all. Luckily, I know how to fight. Tiptoeing closer, I reach out my hand towards the handle, stopping an inch shy of the cool metal. And suddenly, a thundering crash echoes out as something rams against the door and I yelp and jump backwards, half expecting it to fly open right in front of me. The sound of footsteps sprinting up the stairs alerts me to Gray's presence, and I'm silently thankful that I didn't unknowingly let in whoever it is outside. "What the hell was that?" Gray asks breathlessly, putting himself between me and the door. "There's someone out in that alley," I say, and for the first time I realize my hands are shaking. "Go upstairs and lock the door behind you," he orders as he strides towards the back door, but I shake my head firmly and follow him. "I'm coming with you," I insist as I step up to his side, balling my hands into fists to keep them still. "Is that so?" He throws a look at me, and I half expect he'd be smirking if the circumstances were different. When I meet his eyes, he gives me the kind of smile that I've never seen before, and my breath hitches in my throat. "We have no idea who's on the other side of that door," he says firmly. "I can't let you come with me." "But I know you can handle yourself, Valkii." He cuts me off with a hand on my arm, squeezing affectionately. "But just let me do it this time, okay?" "One day I'll prove to you that I'm not just some damsel in distress," I grumble beneath my breath, loud enough for him to hear. "I don't doubt it," he says with a half smile. "For now, please just wait here, okay?" With a nod, I do as he says, slowly stepping back towards the stairs while he reaches for the door handle in front of him. He twists the handle and steps outside, turning his head left, then right. Then he pulls the door closed and disappears into the darkness of the alley. I wait where I am, my nerves going haywire as I strain my ears for any sound of movement and hear nothing for the longest time. I begin to worry that something might have happened to him. Whoever is outside could possibly just be some drunk who stumbled into the wrong alley. But what if it's not? What if it's something more sinister than all that? My thoughts drift to Ivan and how he's been hanging around more and more these past few days, looking at me in all the wrong ways. Eventually, when it seems that Gray has been gone for far too long, I decide that I should go make sure that he's alright. Just as I start heading towards the door, it opens again and I startle at the sudden entrance. Relief floods through me at seeing Gray's familiar head of blonde hair, and after locking the door behind him, he comes over to me, his eyes holding a look of worry. "Everything okay in here?" he asks hurriedly, and I nod in reply. He brushes past me and heads into the boutique, striding right up to the front door where he peers out the window and then double-checks the lock. "What are you doing?" I ask as I follow him, perplexed by his strange behavior. "Making sure everything's locked up." Then he walks back out of the boutique. I hurry up and follow him. I put a hand on his arm to slow him down. "Gray, you're freaking me out," I say quietly, wondering what the hell has gotten into him. He lets out a sigh and gives me an apologetic look. "I'm sorry," he says, his voice softening as he puts his hand over mine. My gaze follows the gesture and my eyes widen. "What happened to your hands?" I gasp at the sight of his bloody knuckles, and he seems to notice them for the first time. He swears quietly beneath his breath as he drops his hands to his sides. "It's nothing," he says quickly, and my red eyes narrow on him. "You don't have to lie to me." He looks at me and exhales sharply, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "There was someone out there," he admits, "but I managed to scare him off. You don't have to worry." "Who was it?" "Just some random lowlife hanging around in the alley." He rubs at the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes, probably looking for a store to break into and make some quick cash. He has a strange look on his face, and for a moment I get the impression that he's lying to me. Quickly dismissing the thought, "This girl is dumb." Quickly dismissing the thought, I tell myself he wouldn't do that right now, but the concern on my face must still show. "I'm worried he could come back," Gray says with a glance towards the back door. "I'll take care of it if he does," I assure him. "I can stay here tonight," he says suddenly, catching me off guard, "to make sure you're not alone in that case." My mouth opens and closes without making a sound. I may be tough, but I still have to admit to myself that I'd feel much safer if Gray stayed. "Are you sure?" I finally managed to say. "I mean, you don't have to." "I'm sure," he says with a growing smile, tapping a finger gently beneath my chin to ease the frown. I feel like so much of this is manipulation, but I also don't know if I'm just, like, looking for things that aren't there. I can just hang out in the basement. It's no big deal. Well, now you're being ridiculous. I rest my hands on my hips as I stare at him. I have a perfectly nice guest room you can use. No, you don't. Why was Sarah sleeping on your sofa if you have a guest room? Something glints in his eyes, and I have an inkling about what he's going to say before he actually speaks. Are you finally inviting me up to your place? He asks, a smug grin tilting his lips. Only if you promise to behave yourself. I meet his grin with one of my own, holding my ground against him. He takes a step forward and stares down at me, his hair falling into his face. I never do, especially not around you. My face grows warm beneath his constant stare. He's playing with me, and I know it. He always is. Unfortunately, this time I have to be the one to break first, still feeling uncomfortable being down here in the dark after someone had been caught lurking around in the alley outside. I step backwards towards the stairs before turning, waving a hand for him to follow. Come on, let's go. We head up to my apartment together, and a sudden rush of nervousness twists my stomach, despite my best attempt to seem calm and collected. The only person who enters my home apart from me is usually Sarah. It feels strange to have someone completely new under my roof. Nice place, Gray says as he glances around the living room. Thanks, I trail off when he heads over to the balcony and closes the doors, locking them firmly. He takes in the view before closing the curtains and turning back to me. Do you really think someone could get in there? I ask in disbelief. Can never be too careful. Right, in case someone decides to scale the wall and climb in the window, I say lightly, mostly in an attempt to make myself feel better. Yeah, don't remind me of that fiasco. A small smile peeks out when he shakes his head at me, and with a shrug, I decide he's right, better safe than sorry. Come into the kitchen, and I'll take a look at your hands, I instruct, leading him down the hallway and over to the sink. Taking a small cloth, I wet it under the tap while he leans back against the counter. Then I take one of his hands in mine, gently pressing the cloth to his knuckles. He barely even flinches at the pressure, and it makes me wonder how often he's still getting into scraps these days. When the wounds are clear, I notice a few scars here and there scattered over the backs of his hands. Do you get into a lot of fights? I ask, trailing one of the lines with the tip of my finger. I used to, back in school, he admits, watching the movement. Not so much anymore, only when I have to. I say nothing in response, not wanting to risk him suspecting my familiarity with his past. I turn away to grab my small first aid kit out of the cupboard, feeling some relief that he's learned to pull the number of his punches. It's nice to hear how nice to hear how he's grown. You don't approve? Gray asks, ducking his head to meet my eyes when I step in front of him again. I didn't say that, I say with a small shake of my head as I fish around in the box for supplies. You didn't have to. I keep quiet as I finish dressing his wounds before stashing the first aid kit away again. It's not like I don't approve of fighting. I used to fight plenty back in my school days, and I'm thankful that I know how to, so I'm hardly one to judge. It's the memories that come with the fighting that make me pause. All better? I ask with a nod to his hands, offering a smile to clear some of the tension. Much better, he answers with a grin of his own, and we head back into the living room. This is my spare bedroom, a living room. Super Yacht Singles, Gray muses out loud when he notices the show still playing on the TV. Good show. You watch reality TV? I ask with a raised eyebrow. Sure, who doesn't? He sits down on the sofa and grabs the remote, turning the volume up with an amused smile. I take a seat next to him. It feels strangely comfortable doing something as simple as watching TV with him, and I like the way it feels. Until a familiar pang of guilt hits me. Maybe I didn't owe him the truth when we were strangers, but this blossoming friendship of ours has come further than I ever thought possible. I just wanted to right my past wrong, but now I may be creating an entirely new moral conundrum. If I come clean, would he want nothing to do with me? Settling into the sofa, I pull my feet up and try not to think about it. At this moment, selfish though it may be, I'll prioritize my physical safety. I can't deny the fact that Gray's presence is keeping me calm. We spend the next few minutes watching the show, laughing and joking about the contestants and the crazy situations they find themselves in. When an ad break comes on, I smile softly to myself and turn to Gray. He seems relaxed, more so than I've ever seen him, and I decide that now might be the perfect time to pursue a different pressing conversation topic. Earlier today, you said you had something on your mind. I start, watching the way his jaw tightens ever so slowly. Yeah, I remember, he says flatly, the smile fading. I hesitate before asking, not wanting to draw any unwanted attention to the question, but finding the need to know more about what's going on around here pressing on me. Did it have anything to do with Ivan? I ask. Gray snaps his head towards me, mistrust running deep through his storming eyes. Huh? Why would you bring him up? Because of what happened the other night, I say quickly, slightly taken aback by his reaction. After Dragon Den? Oh, right. He sinks back into the sofa, resting his head against the back of it and pinching the bridge of his nose between his fingers. Is he keeping Ivan close? to see if it was him who planted the knife that night, because Ivan wanted rid of him, but he can say in his head, oh, but so did the Valkyrie. Partly, I guess. Ivan is known around town for being a pain in the ass. How long have you known him? I asked, treading lightly. If I can find out more about what Nikki was talking about, then maybe I wouldn't feel so suspicious of the two of them hanging out all the time. Since high school, he was the leader of the Riverside High Gang, one of our rivals, Gray says. He tilts his head towards me. In fact, there were 3 rival gangs in the city, and 3 leaders. I swallow thickly and shift in my seat, determined to keep my eyes on him and not give away the fact that I know we're treading dangerous ground. What happened to the other one? I ask, feigning innocence. Who knows? I guess she disappears. She disappeared, he says, and then continues with his own question. So he says she, and we know he knows that because Nikki was like, hey, you're fucking dumb for thinking it's a man. And he's like, oh, it's a girl? Oh, well, I'm gonna beat her up anyway. But yeah. I think he knows. I don't know. I think he knows. How long have you known the Hammer? My breath hitches in my throat at the title, but my confusion at the statement is very real. Who? I ask. Ivan, Gray clarifies. How long have you known him? As long as I've known you, I say, and this time it's the truth. We return. It's not really the truth, is it? You've known him since you were in school as well. How is that the truth? You didn't know him personally, but you knew him. You literally had interactions with him. At least 2. We return to watching the show quietly, a strangeness settling in the air between us. I can't quite tell why Gray had asked me that question. Even though it's far from the truth, as far as he should be aware, I only met Ivan after opening the boutique. Huh? Why did you say you were telling the truth? How long have you known him? As long as I've known you. And this time it's the truth. Huh? When the show finishes, Gray stretches his arms above his head and looks around the room, his eyes falling on the bookshelf in the corner. Hey, why don't we play a game? He says as he stands, heading over to check out the small selection of board games on the bottom shelf. Ah, here we go. He comes over and lays a box on the coffee table. Jumble? Really? I whine. Jumble is an old game of mine where you use blocks of letters to spell out different words, so it's Scrabble. The squares on the board, as well as different letters, all give points, and the aim is to be the one with the most points before the letters all run out. Oh, come on, it'll be fun. Alright, but I have to warn you, I'm pretty good at this game, I tease as I make a move to join him. He snorts in amusement and makes a face at me. We'll see about that. Taking a seat at either end of the coffee table, we set up the board together and each pick a piece at random to determine who starts. Gray picks a C and gets to go first. After setting our pieces up on our stands, he starts with the word danger. In the middle of the board, I scan my letters and follow with beams over the E, jotting down my score. Next comes lust, and I give him a look, earning an innocent shrug of his shoulders. The tilt of his lips proves that there's nothing innocent about it at all. Oh shit, I pressed enter too fast, I'm sorry. You should be happy I didn't use those same letters to spell out another word, he says. I rearrange the letters in my head before realizing what he's talking about. Smothering my smile, I peer at my letters, deciding to jump on board with this new game of his. I bite down on my lip as I place my next word, lick, attempting to keep a straight face. Oh, this is going weird, guys. Gray's turn is next, and he taps his fingers against the top of the table while he concentrates. It doesn't take much longer before he's putting down the word hard above danger in the middle. Scrutinizing my pieces, I think I've lost this questionable game already, until I see my next move. Kink. Placing my word, I look up at Gray with a smile on my lips, feeling proud of myself. He runs a thumb over his bottom lip in thought, staring at his letters silently before his eyes move back to the board. Then he reaches out and rearranges 4 of the existing pieces, creating a new word in the bottom corner. BDSM. I stare at the pieces with a mixture of emotions battling within me, confusion, doubt, anticipation. But laced through it all is a dark feeling of intrigue. Oh, I'm over it already, man. Get out of here. Gray stays quiet, and I get the impression that he's waiting for me to speak first. When I glance at him, I find his heavy-lidded stare underlined with a subtle wariness, as though scared he might scare me off completely. I'm not sure that's in the rules, I say finally, my chest tightening with the tension hanging between us. His shoulders relax at the sight of my subtle smile, and he clicks his tongue at me. What can I say? I'm a fan of rule-breaking. I shake my head at him before I stare at the acronym once more, and another thought pops into my head. The store I saw you and Jed in, I start, and then trail off, unsure if we should even be having this conversation. The sex store? Gray asks, his eyebrows dipped in the middle. I nod, deciding I've gone too far to turn back now. You seem to know about the kinds of things in there. I think back on the aisles of toys and other accessories, whips, handcuffs, vibrators. Some people get pleasure from those things, he says, and I note the smallest amount of teasing in his voice. People like you? I ask. Yes, he says with an entirely straight face, gauging my reaction. People like me. I let out a shaky breath, the air on my skin bringing goosebumps to the surface. Does that make you uncomfortable? He asks. No, I don't know much about it. BDSM, I mean. It's so boring. I'm sorry. No hate to anyone who likes this trope, but to me it's so boring having this almost pure, innocent, maiden-like woman be introduced to the world of BDSM. It's boring. And I don't even think it's realistic. I don't think women get into BDSM through a man introducing it to her. I just don't think it happens like that. I think they get interested in it on their own through like romance books, I guess porn. The porn they randomly stumble upon when they're maybe younger. You know, that kind of thing. I don't actually think it's introduced by men like this. Like in 50 Shades of Grey. You know, I just don't think it happens like that. With that, he drags my pieces over and flips them onto the board. I can explain a couple of things if you like. It's probably simpler than you think, he says, waiting for me to give him the go-ahead. I nod, and with our game abandoned and all the letters now facing up, he finds what he's looking for and spells out a word on the board in front of me, covering it with his hand. The first thing you have to know is that BDSM can involve plenty of different sexual practices depending on what you're into. These are just a few of them, he says before he moves his hand, showing me the first word. Bondage, I say out loud, even though the term is familiar. Ropes and handcuffs, usually, he explains, though some people have all kinds of contraptions they use for fun. He says that last part with a suggestive waggle of his eyebrows, and I bite down on my lip to stop my smile. Clearing away the pieces, he picks out a few more, spelling out another word. Dominant, he explains the next term. It's what you would call someone who enjoys taking control. I swallow hard, meeting his unwavering gaze. And then, on the other hand, you have the submissive. They enjoy giving power up to their dominant partner, even if it's just for a little while. Sounds intense, I admit, still deciding how to feel about it all. Is this really the kind of thing that Gray is into? It can be, but it can also be a lot of fun, he says in return. Yeah, I might like it, being on the other side, not on the submissive side like you want me to be. I have to choose this one. I suppose I might like it if I tried it, I say, watching his lips tilt up at the sides. So how do you tell if you're dominant or submissive? It all depends on what you like in bed, Gray says, watching me the entire time he speaks. Do you like giving orders? He pauses and I quickly realize that he's actually asking me the question. When I show no signs of answering, he continues. Any of those could be a sign that you're a dom. A sub might like to be tied up or spanked or just be bossed around. They enjoy letting someone else be in control. I think I figured out which one you are, I say without thinking, my body growing warm when Gray chuckles darkly. Yes, I am Gray. I can't remember his name. What's his name? It's something Gray. In the 50 Shades of Grey. And which is that? Dominant, I say. He nods and I look him over, wondering if he might be someone I could give control over to. No! No, that's not what I want. When I realize that it's not exactly a thought I should be having about him, I shake my head to clear it. This is the actual first time that I'm having an issue with it, and I thought I'd have more of an issue with it, because the, like, more subby boys are, when I first played it, that was because there was only 3 people. It was Kane, Neil, and Dimitri. And Dimitri was the only, like, subby boy in it. So he was just a treat. He was a treat. And, like, Kane was more, like, dominant. Neil was maybe more dominant. Maybe. I think he was a verge. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been a really long time. But I didn't have any issues with them when I thought that I might, because I thought it would play a bigger role, especially in the plus scene. And then I went to James, and I was like, this is gonna be a problem, because I read all of his stuff, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be a real problem. I don't think I'm gonna like him. But then I ended up liking him, and it wasn't bad at all. He wasn't like a mega dom. He was a verge. He was a verge. And his plus scene was really good. Because it still felt like... It felt like there was control there on her side, on the MC side. But then it switched like a little bit, but it also didn't feel too much at all. Like it was still felt very equal. This, it's like a part of his fucking core, apparently. And I think I'm gonna have an issue with it because it's not actually, again, it's fierce and innocent or whatever. What is it? No, fierce and kind, which is, to me, and it's always come across this way in the descriptions that come up next, is dominant and submissive, but you can't really put that in because it's not really right in the context of a lot of things. So I understand why it's not called that, but that's essentially what it is. With fierce, you show a more dominant side. With kind, you show a more submissive kind. So in this one though, it's not the same because I'm being pigeonholed into a role that I don't want to be in, and I'm having no say in whether I have it or not. That's what it looks like to me. Because she's like, I wonder if I could give up control over it to him. But then she's like, oh no, wait, I still feel really guilty about everything in our past that he doesn't know about yet. So that's going to be a big roadblock for a while. But I just have a feeling, that this one's going to be the first one that I have a problem with because it doesn't actually allow you to have that kind of autonomy over the character, because where you're usually like dominant, and so you will take a more dominant position in everything, because you can't be with him. He's so stuck in being in control. I don't know, but it could also surprise me. And he could, when they're more like softened to each other and there's like no more secrets, blah, 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 he's more comfortable letting her have a bit more control. I would love that. I would fucking love that. I would love that. But I don't think it's going to happen. It seems risky, giving so much power to someone else, I say quickly, trying to bring myself back to his level. Gray gives me a meaningful look, and for some strange reason I start to feel more comfortable talking to him about all of this. It's a gradual process, something you start off slow, but no matter what happens, safety is always a priority. Partners establish boundaries and safe words to make sure none of them feel uncomfortable. Consent is pretty important. Safe words? I ask. They could be anything, Gray explains. Like, I hear a cat. Oh, my cat's eating. Yeah, like stop or no, I don't want this. You know, those are good safe words. It could be anything, Gray explains. Typically, something you wouldn't normally use during sex, like umbrella, for example, to avoid any confusion. If someone says the safe word, then it all stops. I think about that quietly, deciding it sounds reasonable enough. If I ever were to take an interest in it, that is. Which I will not. Oh, finally. Let's get the fuck away from this conversation. Before I can ask anything else, a crashing sound rings out in the distance, loud enough to make me jump and tear my eyes from him. I will say that there are more submissive women in the world than there are dominant, but I don't feel like it's to this extent. It's like, I don't want to be in control in the bedroom kind of thing. It's not to this extent. I don't think, I don't know. I feel like it's just ingrained in women so much that you need to be like, oh, the submissive little housewife or whatever, that we don't dare branch out of that or even think we can. Ladies, it's good. It's good. Before I can ask anything else, the crashing sound, yeah, it makes me jump and tear my eyes away from him. Finally, let's go, let's go. In an instant, Gray is on his feet, storming towards the window and throwing it open. What is it? I ask as I come up next to him, searching the darkness below. He lets out a soft chuckle, pointing his finger in the direction of a couple of old boxes. Just a couple of cats, see? Oh my god, can I go pet them? Following his lead, I spot the felines playing around down there, hiding in the boxes and jumping out at each other. You know, I really loved Dimitri. I remember still, even to this day, he was a cat boy. Not like that, but like a cat boy. He loved cats. He was such a good guy. Any guy who treats cats so nicely is such a bonus. See my cat. I smile at the sight, though my heart is still pounding like crazy after everything that's happened tonight. I turn back to the room and look for something to do to calm me down. I really hoped there was going to be some more drama, but, you know. The jumble pieces are still scattered over the coffee table, and Gray helps me pack them away before I store the box back on the shelf. I'm not going to be your subby little girl, dude. He yawns loudly from behind me and drops back down onto the sofa, the mood from earlier completely dissipated, though I know it's for the best. The spare Again, why wasn't Sarah sleeping in the spare room if you had a spare room? Why did you make her sleep on the sofa? Or maybe she prefers the sofa? I don't know, that's just weird to me. The spare bed is all set up if you want to get some sleep, I suggest, watching him stretch his long legs out in front of him. I'm getting drowsy, but thinking about someone potentially lurking around outside the building is making it difficult to think of sleep. Why don't you lie down here? He pats his lap. He chuckles softly when I give him an odd look. Only if you feel more comfortable sleeping out here. I don't mind, Gray says with a sleepy smile. Sure, but only because I want to rest my eyes, I say. Ooh, CG. My hair's longer than that, actually, and it doesn't look like that. When I lay down and get comfortable, my head in his lap, he raises his fingers to comb my hair away from my face. I make a small, contented sound at the feeling of his fingers against my scalp and let my heavy eyes flutter closed as he continues to drag them through my hair. Thank you again, Gray, I say quietly, for staying over and for making sure everything is safe around here. You didn't have to. Though my eyes are closed, I feel the warmth of his breath and the rumble of his voice when he speaks. I care about what happens around here, you know? And what happens to you. Probably more than you think, he says softly, and I'm well aware of the smile that gently tilts my lips at his words. It amazes me how every single day he manages to make me let down my guard more and more, and as much as I enjoy the feeling of growing closer to him, I'm more terrified of knowing that it won't last. I'll have to come clean to him about our shared past, and when I do, it'll change how he sees me forever. He might even refuse to see me again. But tonight, at least, I push it from my mind. You say that all the time. Well, I just won't think about it right now. I get it. Procrastination. I let him run his fingers through my hair until I grow sleepy and eventually doze off completely. I'll deal with the rest tomorrow. I would not have done this. I would have, like, is there a lock on the bedroom door or wherever you've stored that box? Because you could be in such a deep sleep that he can get up and he can go rummage through your shit and he'll know. He'll know. You won't be the one to tell him. Alright, I'll do one more maybe. I'll see you in the next one.